The shrill, ear-piercing sound of a siren suddenly tore through the quiet of the late afternoon on the deserted beach road, where the white-capped waves still lapped at the golden sand. The sound grew closer, urgent and imposing, like an ominous omen. Imani Carter glanced in her rearview mirror, and a police cruiser, its hazard lights flashing red and blue, was rapidly approaching the small burgundy sedan she was driving. Her heart suddenly quickened, not so much from fear that she had committed some traffic offense. She was a very careful driver, but from a vague sense of unease, a constant wariness that perhaps every black person in this country felt whenever they encountered law enforcement. Officer Derek Sloan, a white man with a large muscular body and a somewhat gruff, rugged face, stepped out of the patrol car with an air of authority. He approached the driver's door of the Imani, then used his rough knuckles to knock hard on the window, creating a dry, unpleasant knock-knock sound. "Hello, ma'am. Please let me see your vehicle registration." There was something unusual about his voice, not the usual seriousness and objectivity of a person performing official duties, but a somewhat ill-intentioned curiosity, an implicit assessment behind the seemingly polite words. The young black woman, Imani Carter, 22 years old, a recent college graduate, took a deep breath to calm herself, then slowly rolled down the car window. A salty and slightly chilly afternoon breeze blew into the car, stirring a few strands of her jet-black curls, brushing against her smooth cheeks. "Officer, is there a problem? Did I do something wrong?" Her voice was as polite, courteous, and cooperative as possible. Despite the unnamed anxiety that was rising inside her, Officer Derek Sloan did not answer her question immediately. Instead, he glanced at Imani from head to toe slowly, assessingly, like a predator scrutinizing its prey. His slimy gaze lingered for a long time, not very subtly and rudely, on the neck of the simple but somewhat low-cut white t-shirt she was wearing, revealing a part of her attractive, slender collarbone and smooth, healthy brown skin. "You're going a little over the speed limit, little girl," he finally said, but it was clearly a blatant excuse. A lie. Imani knew for a fact that she had always kept to the speed limit on this stretch of road. Her car even had an automatic speed warning system, and she never dared to let her guard down. He leaned closer, one hand on the open door, deliberately showing his intention to stick his large, dirty hand inside the car. "Let's see. I wonder if there's anything interesting and unexpected in here." His half-smile full of hidden meaning and his greedy, lustful eyes made Imani feel a sense of disgust and contempt welling up in her chest. A normal traffic check? A regular police administrative procedure? Or is this the beginning of a blatant abuse of power? A sexual harassment with evil, dirty and unacceptable intentions? How will the young girl, Imani Carter, who has just stepped out of the university, react to this increasingly obvious and dangerous threat? Let's follow this story to the end. Imani Carter, 22 years old, is a young woman who has just graduated with honors in investigative journalism from a prestigious university on the East Coast of the United States. She is currently in a rather stressful and busy period, having to submit her resume to a series of major newspapers, famous television stations, and participate in competitive job interviews. She is a smart, sharp, dynamic, and enthusiastic young woman. Imani possesses a radiant, healthy beauty that is very typical of African American women. With naturally curly black hair, big, round, sparkling eyes, and always shining with extraordinary determination. More importantly than her physical beauty, Imani is a person with a strong personality, an independent spirit, and a very clear sense of her civil rights, as well as those of others. She never accepts injustice, oppression, or discrimination in any form. And she was also the beloved only daughter of Marcus Carter, a prominent federal prosecutor, a respected and influential black man in the American legal community, who had devoted his life and career to the relentless fight for justice, truth, and integrity. The situation that Imani Carter found herself in late that afternoon, driving alone on a deserted coastal road, was completely unexpected and unforeseen. She was driving her burgundy sedan, a thoughtful gift her parents had saved up for her when she got into college. Back home from a stressful but promising job interview at a major television station in downtown Oakland, California. She had been driving carefully, obeying all speed limits and other traffic laws. She had done nothing wrong. There was no legitimate reason to be stopped and checked by the police in such an unusual way. That day, due to the hot and humid weather in the California Bay Area in the afternoon, Imani chose to wear a simple white t-shirt made of cool, comfortable cotton. The collar was a bit lower than the modest office clothes she usually wore to interviews, combined with a pair of dynamic blue jeans and a pair of sneakers. She had no intention of dressing sexy or intentionally attracting any unnecessary attention from others. Imani Carter's strong, independent, and somewhat tough personality was formed and nurtured by the strict but also loving and understanding education of her parents, especially her respected father. She was strong, decisive, and never easily bullied, subdued, or resigned to injustice or imposition. Her father, who has spent his entire life working in the legal profession, has taught her many valuable things about the law, about the rights and obligations of an American citizen, and most importantly, the skills needed to protect herself legally and effectively in difficult and dangerous situations. He also advised Imani, after she started driving herself to school away from home, that she should proactively install a small dash cam, the kind that can be discreetly mounted on the windshield of the car. It is a modern technological device that can automatically record everything that happens in front of the car and even the sounds and conversations that take place inside the car. It is not only a necessary precaution in case of a traffic accident, but also an invisible witness, an objective evidence that can help her in unfortunate cases of disputes, being treated unfairly or being falsely accused by people with bad intentions. The relationship between Imani Carter and her father, Marcus Carter, is extremely close, intimate, and full of mutual trust. Her father is not only a loving and protective father, but also a great friend, a wise teacher, an ideal model of fairness, integrity, courage, and dedication to work that Imani always admires, respects, and tries to follow. She knows that no matter what happens to her, no matter how difficult or challenging, her father will always be by her side, will always listen, support, and find ways to protect her in the best way. Officer Derek Sloan, a white man in his 30s, had been a patrol officer for the Oakland Police Department for 6 years. During those 6 years, Sloan had built up a reputation, not to mention a reputation, both within the department and in the community he was assigned to protect. He was not known for his outstanding achievements in fighting crime, but for abusing the power he was given, for showing off and being arrogant with people, and for his frequent inappropriate, disrespectful, and even harassing behavior, especially toward young, beautiful women, especially women of color, whom he considered vulnerable and vulnerable. He had been complained and denounced by the people several times about his arrogant attitude and his abuse of power. But all of those cases were only at the level of a cursory internal reprimand, a formal reminder, or even inexplicably ignored, mysteriously sunk. It could be due to the deference and protection of some superiors who had an unclear relationship with him, or it could also be because the victims, for fear of retaliation, fear of making their lives more difficult, did not dare to stand up and pursue the case to the end. The annual salary of a lowly patrol officer like him was only about $68,000, a number that he always felt was too small, not commensurate with the effort and authority he held in his hands. He always craved for more money, a more luxurious life, and was willing to do anything, even illegal things, to achieve that goal. The sick motives, deviant thoughts, and base desires seemed to have formed and been deeply ingrained in Derek Sloan's mind for a long time, when he suddenly saw Imani Carter, a young, pretty black girl, with seductive curves hidden under her low-cut white t-shirt, driving alone on a deserted coastal road with few people passing by. Immediately, the evil animal instincts in him rose strongly. He wanted to take advantage of the police uniform he was wearing, take advantage of the power that the state and the people had given him to enforce justice, in order to approach, to intimidate, and most likely to commit acts of sexual harassment against this vulnerable young girl. The racial prejudices that were deeply ingrained in his subconscious, the distorted thoughts about white supremacy, made him even more blindly confident that Imani would be afraid, would not dare to resist or denounce his actions, and he could easily achieve his dirty, despicable goals without facing any punishment. Sitting in the police patrol car with Derek Sloan at that time was Officer Ramirez, a younger colleague of Latin origin. Ramirez, from the passenger seat, could clearly see the unusual expressions, the impure intentions, the lustful looks in Sloan's eyes and initial actions when he decided to stop Imani Carter's car. However, Ramirez chose to remain blamelessly silent, without a word of intervention, without a single reminder to his colleague. It could be that he was afraid of Sloan, who was more senior and had a reputation as a bully and troublemaker in the department, or even worse. It could be that Ramirez had the same twisted ideas as Sloan, or at least that he was indifferent, indulgent, or even tacitly approving of his colleagues' wrongdoings and degeneracy. That silence, whether intentional or not, contributed significantly to creating conditions for evil, for bad deeds to flourish and be carried out. Imani Carter, despite her growing unease and anxiety at the officer's strange and somewhat intimidating demeanor, tried to maintain her composure and cooperation. She rummaged through her purse and presented her valid driver's license and vehicle registration to Officer Derek Sloan. "Officer, here are my documents. I can confirm once again that I was not speeding on this stretch of road. My vehicle has an automatic speed warning system, and I always drive safely." Officer Derek Sloan let out a cold, disdainful laugh, not even bothering to glance at the documents Imani had just carefully handed him. "Your speed warning system could be malfunctioning at any moment, or you could have deliberately turned it off so you could speed. My eyes are never wrong. My pretty girl." He deliberately dragged on unnecessarily, refusing to return Imani's papers, instead continuing to leer at her with his greedy, slimy eyes, examining every feature of her face and body, as if trying to strip her bare with his gaze. "Your name is Imani Carter? That's a very pretty, very sexy name. Where are you going that you seem so hasty?" Imani began to feel a growing sense of unease and disgust at Officer Sloan's indecent and suggestive attitude and words. "I'm driving home from a job interview. Please check my papers quickly and let me go. I don't want to be late." She managed to speak, her voice now a little firmer and less timid than before. Officer Derek Sloan didn't stop his inappropriate behavior, but instead seemed to enjoy Imani's weak and somewhat timid resistance. He leaned closer to the car door, so close that Imani could clearly smell the faint, unpleasant smell of alcohol on his breath. "What are you doing home so early, pretty girl? It must be boring being home alone." "Huh?" he said, his voice artificially sweet and full of playboy. "Or maybe we could find a more private, romantic place nearby so we can talk to each other a little, to get to know each other better. If you're a little obedient, indulgent, and reasonable, then I can totally, flexibly, forgive and overlook that serious speeding violation for you." He winked meaningfully, and his dirty, rough hand began to slowly move, with the clear intention of touching Imani through the lowered window. Imani Carter shuddered in disgust and horror at Officer Derek Sloan's lewd, suggestive words and obscene, perverted actions. She knew that she was in real danger, a danger that came not only from the abuse of power of a corrupt police officer, but also from the physical assault and vile desires of a sick person. She tried to keep her mind really clear, not allowing herself to panic. In that critical moment, she clearly remembered the words that her father, Marcus Carter, had carefully instructed her since she was a little girl. "My dear daughter, in any situation, no matter how dangerous or difficult, you must try to stay calm. Do not let fear overwhelm your mind. Try to observe, collect as much evidence as possible, and call me as soon as you have the first chance of safety. I will always be by your side. Officer, I think you are going too far beyond your limits. Your current behavior is completely unacceptable, a serious violation of the professional ethics of a person on duty," Imani said, her voice trying to remain firm, steely, and fearless, even though deep down, she was extremely worried and panicked. Officer Derek Sloan burst out laughing in a challenging and arrogant way. "Too far? What is too far? You beautiful and charming girl?" He continued to stick his dirty hand inside the car, aiming straight at Imani Carter, a sick smile on his lips. Just as Officer Derek Sloan's clammy hands were about to touch her, Imani Carter reacted with lightning speed. She backed up into the passenger seat, and with a quick, decisive movement, she reached for her smartphone, which was in the convenient glove compartment between the two front seats. "Stop right there, or I'll call my personal lawyer right now." She had quickly lied about having a personal lawyer, hoping to buy some precious time and perhaps scare him a little. Officer Derek Sloan flinched slightly at Imani's sudden and somewhat fierce resistance. But then he immediately burst out laughing arrogantly and contemptuously. "A lawyer? What the hell do you think your lawyer can do for me at this time, in the middle of nowhere? Don't be so naive and stupid, girl!" Imani Carter didn't bother to argue or debate with him anymore. She knew that reasoning with a degenerate, a person who had lost all humanity like this, was completely useless and a waste of time. She quickly unlocked her phone screen and dialed a familiar number, a number that she always saved at the top of her emergency contacts. As soon as the call connected on the other end, she didn't hesitate to turn on the speakerphone of the phone so that the police officer standing next to her could hear everything clearly. "Dad, can you hear me? Dad, I'm in a bit of trouble with a police officer here. He pulled me over for no reason and he's been acting very inappropriately, very scary. Dad." Imani's voice was shaking uncontrollably now, but she still tried to speak clearly, coherently, and maintain the necessary composure. Officer Derek Sloan, upon hearing the coy and weak "dad" coming from Imani's phone, became even more contemptuous, mocking and smug. "Calling Dad to tell on me? That's Dad's little girl. Fine, go ahead and call. Let's see what your dad, even if he's God, can do for me right now." He still hadn't realized the seriousness of the situation he was facing, still immersed in his stupid complacency and delusions of his own small power. On the other end of the line, after a very short silence, only a few seconds, a deep, steely, powerful male voice rang out without a trace of panic, a voice that Imani Carter felt was extremely familiar, close, and gave her a strange sense of security. "Imani, my dear, where are you? Tell me clearly the name and badge number on that police officer's lapel right now. Are you okay? Are you safe?" Imani Carter, as if given an invisible source of strength by her father's trustworthy voice, raised her head, looked straight at Officer Derek Sloan, and read out loud, clearly the name and badge number on the metal name tag hanging on his chest. At the same time, she also tried to describe as briefly, quickly, and accurately as possible the location where she was being stopped. A deserted stretch of road near the beach in the west of the city. The father's voice on the other end of the line suddenly became colder, more stern, and more authoritative than ever. A change that even Imani felt a little surprised. Officer Derek Sloan, lapel number 4827, officially employed by the Oakland Police Department. Right? I am Marcus Carter, currently a federal prosecutor under the United States Attorney's Office. I request that you immediately preserve the scene of this incident and not take any action, no matter how small, that could endanger or violate the safety and freedom of my daughter. I am on my way there right now, and I have also informed your Washington police chief of this serious matter. Wait there. Hearing the name Federal Prosecutor Marcus Carter, Officer Derek Sloan's face immediately changed dramatically from smug, arrogant to stunned, then quickly paled, meters away in terror. He knew that name very well, a name that everyone in law enforcement, from local police to federal agents, feared to some extent. Marcus Carter was one of the toughest, most talented, most honest, and most famous federal prosecutors in the country, especially in investigating and prosecuting cases of corruption, abuse of power, cases involving police brutality, and other misconduct within the law enforcement force itself. Many high-ranking officials, corrupt police officers, and corrupt officials had to fall off their horses, lose their careers, and even go to prison because of his investigations and strong indictments. Officer Derek Sloan stood frozen in place, his hand still hovering in midair, where he had just intended to touch Imani. His mouth was open, unable to utter another word. The smug smile, the arrogant look, and the sick, vile intentions on his face had disappeared without a trace, replaced by a look of utter panic, an indescribable horror. Officer Ramirez, Sloan's young colleague, who had been sitting reproachfully silent in the nearby patrol car, had also heard the entire dramatic conversation through the phone's speakerphone. His face had turned pale with fear. He knew that he, too, would have a hard time escaping this incident. "Oh, my God. Your attorney. Attorney Carter." Officer Derek Sloan stuttered, his voice shaking so much that the words were almost inaudible. He quickly took a few steps back, away from Imani's car, his hands raised high above his head like a criminal surrendering unconditionally to the police force. I'm sorry, Mr. Prosecutor. I was just joking. I didn't mean anything else. Please believe me." Then he turned to Imani Carter. His voice became urgent, pitiful, almost like he was begging in a humiliating and pitiful way. Miss Imani, I sincerely apologize to you so much. It's all my fault. I was wrong. I didn't mean to do it. Please tell your father for me. Please forgive me this time. I still have a family, a crazy wife, young children at home waiting for me. Imani Carter looked at Officer Derek Sloan with a look that was both contemptuous and angry, but also a bit gleeful when seeing the truly cowardly and weak face of the one who had just recently shown abuse of power and arrogance. "Your apology is too late, officer. Your every move, every dirty word, and every evil intention from this moment up until now has been recorded in full, clear, and without missing a single detail by the dash cam installed in my car." She pointed to the tiny, discreet dash cam mounted on the car's windshield, where a small red light was still flashing continuously, signaling that it was still working perfectly. Hearing Imani's words, Hearing the word dash cam, Officer Derek Sloan felt like he was struck by a powerful bolt of lightning. He knew that this time he was really done for. There was no longer any chance to deny, to escape, or to beg for forgiveness. Everything was over. Less than 15 minutes later, a time that seemed like an eternity to Officer Derek Sloan and Officer Ramirez, who were still standing on the side of the road, trembling like leaves, their faces as pale as floating corpses. A jet-black sedan, the type usually used by high-ranking government officials, followed closely by a special Oakland Police Department patrol car, quickly arrived at the scene. Federal prosecutor Marcus Carter, a tall, well-built black man with an air of indescribable dignity, stepped out of the sedan. His face was filled with anxiety, tension, but also anger and determination. He was followed by Police Chief Washington, a white man in his 60s with graying hair, who also appeared extremely angry, disappointed, and somewhat embarrassed by the wrongdoing and corruption of his subordinates. The first thing that Prosecutor Marcus Carter did after getting out of the car was to run quickly to his beloved daughter's side. He hugged Imani tightly, then carefully checked her for any injuries, for any excessive fear. Imani tried to stay calm. She reassured her father that she was fine. There was nothing serious physically wrong. Then she recounted the whole incident clearly, coherently, without missing any important details. Meanwhile, the Washington police chief approached Officer Derek Sloan and Officer Ramirez, who were standing with their heads bowed to the ground, not daring to look up at anyone. "You two?" The police chief's voice was full of disappointment, anger, and shame. "What the hell have you two done? Do you two still consider me your superior? Do you two still care about the laws of this country?" The video from Imani Carter's dash cam was reviewed on the scene, on a laptop that a young assistant to District Attorney Marcus Carter had quickly brought along. Every obscene word, every indecent act, every rude gesture, and especially Officer Derek Sloan's clear sexual harassment and groping, along with Officer Ramirez's silent, complicit behavior, were all recorded in such clear, detailed detail that there was no room for denial or excuse. The Washington police chief, after viewing the entire video, had nothing more to say. He felt ashamed, disappointed, and angry at those who had tarnished the image of the police department. He immediately ordered an internal investigation team from the police department, who had also been present at the scene at his request, to take over the entire case. At the same time, he also decided to immediately suspend Officer Derek Sloan and Officer Ramirez at the scene, confiscating all their weapons, police badges, and industry cards. "You two will have to face the most comprehensive, serious, and uncompromising investigation ever," Chief Washington declared loudly, without any respect. "And I can assure you that the consequences you will have to bear will not be light at all. You have made me and the entire force ashamed." An internal investigation of the Oakland Police Department was conducted urgently, seriously, and extremely transparently, under the close supervision of Chief Washington and special attention from the Federal Prosecutor's Office. With the undeniable evidence from the dash cam video, along with Imani Carter's detailed and clear testimony, there is no possibility of any cover-up or connivance in this case. The Oakland Police Department's disciplinary board, after carefully reviewing all the evidence and relevant circumstances of the case, quickly made a final decision, a highly deterrent decision: permanently dismiss Officer Derek Sloan from the police force for serious abuse of power, intent to sexually harass citizens, discriminatory words and actions based on race and gender, and seriously damaging the reputation, image, and honor of the entire Oakland police force. Officer Ramirez, Sloan's colleague who remained silent and did not intervene, was also severely disciplined for his irresponsible behavior. Failure to intervene promptly and fail to report the misconduct of his colleague to his superiors as required by law. Not stopping there, the Carter family, through a reputable law firm, decided to file a civil lawsuit against Derek Sloan personally, demanding compensation for the mental damage, panic, anxiety, and negative effects on the honor that he caused Imani Carter. Faced with irrefutable evidence and the risk of a more severe criminal sentence if the case had gone to trial in public before a jury. Derek Sloan finally accepted an out-of-court settlement, which was considered the wisest choice for him at the time. Accordingly, he agreed to compensate Imani Carter a considerable sum, although it may not be as much as $100,000 as some rumors spread in public opinion. But it is enough for him to have to sell his house, his beloved car, and possibly fall into debt for many years to come. Federal prosecutor Marcus Carter, in a press conference held shortly afterwards, strongly and uncompromisingly condemned the wrongdoings, corruption, and degradation of a significant number of police officers who have tarnished the image of the industry. He also firmly affirmed that the federal prosecutor's office will never tolerate any abuse of power, corruption, violation of the law, or trampling on human rights, no matter who that person is or what important position they hold in the government apparatus. Police Chief Washington, who was also present at that press conference, also publicly pledged to all the people of Oakland that he would do everything possible, would use all necessary measures to clean up the police force, strengthen internal supervision more closely, retrain the team of officers in professional ethics, in cultural attitudes towards the people, in order to gradually regain the trust, respect, and good image that has been seriously damaged in the community. The case of Officer Derek Sloan has finally been closed fairly and satisfactorily. He had to pay a very high price, lost his job, lost his honor as a former police officer, and had to face the contempt of society along with a huge financial burden from having to compensate the victim. His career officially ended in a humiliating and shameful way, which is a lesson for those who abuse their power and have degenerate and corrupt behaviors. Imani Carter, despite having gone through a panic and an extremely bad experience, a not-so-good memory in the first days after graduating from college, but she felt that she became stronger, more resilient, and more motivated after daring to stand up against injustice and protect her own dignity and honor. She is even more determined to pursue the path of becoming a professional investigative journalist, someone who can use her sharp pen to expose the negative, the injustice, the dark corners that still exist in society, to contribute to making this world a better place. The compensation she received from Derek Sloan, after deducting the necessary legal fees, can be used by her to continue her graduate studies, to improve her professional qualifications, or she can also donate a portion to nonprofit organizations specializing in protecting women's rights and fighting against racism, issues that she has always been particularly interested in. Federal prosecutor Marcus Carter loves, cherishes, and is proud of his intelligent, brave, and capable daughter even more. This unfortunate incident further strengthened his iron determination in the relentless, uncompromising fight against corruption and degeneration in law enforcement agencies in order to build a truly fair, democratic, and law-abiding society. The Oakland Police Department, under the strong and responsible leadership of Chief Washington, has taken strong, far-reaching, and comprehensive reform measures after this shameful scandal, with a great hope that they can gradually regain their image, reputation, and trust that have been severely damaged in the hearts of the city's people. Abuse of power, gender bias, and racism are extremely dangerous behaviors, cancers that are gnawing at society and are unacceptable, especially when they come from the very people entrusted with the noble responsibility of enforcing and protecting the law. Modern technology, such as small action cameras, can sometimes become an extremely effective tool, a steel witness to protect the innocent and vulnerable people and help expose the truth, bringing the perpetrators and wrongdoers to the light of justice. And never forget that behind every strong, intelligent, independent, and brave woman, there is most likely a wonderful father, a wise teacher, a companion, and an extremely solid rear. What do you think about Imani Carter's wise decision to install a dash cam in her car in advance? Is it a smart and really necessary self-defense measure in today's complex society, full of injustices, especially for women and people from ethnic minorities? If you were Imani, in a situation where a police officer abused her power, intended to harass and threaten her, would you have enough calmness, wisdom, and courage to handle the situation effectively and safely like she did? Does this story change your thinking about the increasingly important role of technological evidence, such as video cameras, in fighting against abuse of power, injustice, and protecting the legitimate rights of people? Do you really believe that, with undeniable evidence, those in power, no matter who they are, will always have to pay a suitable price for their wrongdoings and corruption if exposed and brought to the light of justice?